G'day everyone, welcome to another video by the Frontline Trooper. My name is Andrew Cook and this is a quick safety update telling you guys how to use the materials I use safely and not cause any harm to your body. Next up we have the blade that is preferably known as the snap blade or a Stanley knife. It comes in many different names. I think there's about 20 different varieties, but it's all highly recognized by the fact that the blade is completely built into segments that allow you to snap off during the course of the use of this tool, so that you can always get a sharp edge when you're cutting. Now this is the most dangerous tool and one of the most fragile, to be honest, and the tool that causes the most damage to builders, carpenters, plumbers, anyone that uses this tool. It's the most dangerous. Reason for being is that there are so many different ways it can harm you, and I'm going to cover them now to make sure that you don't ever face the problem. Now the first reason you've got to be aware of this is, of course, it has a very sharp edge. Unlike the scissors, this one is built more like a sword, so that it has one singular blade. One side is sharp and the other side is blunt, so you always only really have to worry about the front sharp. Now what makes this different to a scissors, is that this is very sharp. When using one of these, you're always wanting to keep your hands well away from the target that you're about to cut, and always have something like a breadboard or something solid and wooden that you don't mind carving into placed underneath the object that you're cutting. The reason for this is this will go all the way through your object and hit whatever is on the other side. So you don't want to be hurting your mum's or your girlfriend's table because they'll get very angry at you and you can't remove any marks made by this. Now first up, I'm going to quickly show you a technique that I use in all my guns to make sure I get a clean, nice, solid cut without doing any damage to me or any other parts of the material that I'm trying to cut. When we're working with straight lines, it always helps to have either a metal ruler, a wooden beam, something that is nice and solid, won't bend. Something like a flexible ruler or a rubber ruler is not appropriate. The problem is with that is that it is rubber. These can actually go through the rubber and cut your finger, and it can cause some serious damage. So always have something quite solid, and use, depending on what material it is, always use a light colored pen. The reason for that is because you're able to just see it when you're cutting the line, but you won't actually see it on the weapon, and it doesn't make a permanent marker. So just where you want to make the incision, do a quick line, and now you can always see the line in there, and it doesn't do any damage to the material. And once you have that, you have two options. One, if you feel like you are too afraid to go right up against your finger, or you don't feel like you could go off, always just have that line, carefully place your blade next to the foam and slowly cut down. Now see how my hand is placed. My hand is running parallel to the line that I've just cut, not behind, not in front, not on the other side, which would be very hard to cut, but completely parallel. It's on a slightly upper turn. It's above the edge where I will be finishing off with the blade, so that way I know my blade will come off and there's no chance of it coming off and hitting my finger on this angle. If you were to go through with your hand down here, below the exit of the blade, there is a high possibility you could accidentally come off and go straight over your thumb. You would lose a thumb, and to be honest, losing any part of your body is not worth a $5, $10 styrofoam weapon or a costume. Your fingers are far more valuable, so please never have your hand placed below the exit of the blade. You can quickly tell this by seeing where you know you want the edge of the knife to end, and place your hand about halfway up it, just enough to hold it, and know you can get that nice solid cut. Another thing you want to learn with the Stanley blade is that they are sharp, but they can go blunt over time. So when you are cutting, please don't always go through the material on one solid go. The reason for that is because you are most likely putting damage into what's on the bottom, and you have the higher possibility of straining and cutting something off. So always go through on multiple strikes. Yet again, see how my hand is placed above the exit of the blade, so there's no way it can come off. Slightly go through, maybe about 3 times, depending on what the thickness and the material you're using, and it comes out with a nice clean cut. The reason you don't do it in one solid one is because it is quite difficult to go through, and as you can see, it's a bit physically straining as well, and you could go and come off and hurt yourself. So please go through multiple and you get a nice finer cut. The second most valuable thing in this blade is that they can snap off. When you're snapping it off, you really want to be sure that you're protected. So I advise wearing glasses or hiding yourself behind something when doing this. Getting a nice, strong, flat edge to do it to make sure you've got enough of a blade to snap off. Carefully place it under and lift up. I advise you let your parents do this if you're too young. I've had many times that it has come off and it's either hit someone or hit me just about in the eye, and I've always been quite wary since then. Now the other amazing thing that you do need to learn about these Stanley knives, in every single one, depending on, well, it doesn't even matter, depending on the design, they all have a locking mechanism. Something to stop the blade from going up and down when you're cutting, because the last thing you want is to be cutting and then it goes down. So they all have a locking mechanism. Just figure out what is easiest on your one to allow it to stay in position, to know that you're going to get that height and that depth in it. So that's it for Stanley knives. Please just be aware of that finish line so your hands are not going to be cut off. And yeah, it completely varies. Always use a straight edge when cutting into anything, such as this styrofoam, which I know is much harder than the EVA foam. Always keep your hand above. Carefully follow the line. Multiple cuts, not one singular, and you should come out nice with a nice, beautiful straight line and cut edge.